I'm Michael Pollack, CEO of the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. Welcome back to this year's Leadership Summit. I'm here with Maurice Benard, longtime star of General Hospital, three-time Emmy Award-winning actor, best-selling author of Nothing General About It, right here, and host of the YouTube series State of Mind. Maurice, welcome back to DVSA. It's great to see you.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Maurice, since the early 90s, you've been very transparent about your lived experience living with bipolar. In fact, you're such a strong advocate that you've heavily influenced the storylines at General Hospital for your character and subsequently your character's son, diagnosed with bipolar. And that really stimulated one of the first mainstream conversations, I think, about mood disorders. I'm just wondering if you could talk about that from your own experience.
They came to me because I had a nervous breakdown when I first started General Hospital, and I quit 3 weeks into the gig. And I wanted to be a preacher. I didn't want to act anymore because I contributed acting to having a breakdown. So I didn't want to do it anymore. So about a year later, they came to me and said, could we make the character of Sonny bipolar? I said, fantastic. So they did that, but little did I know that the wear and tear of I've been doing this 28 years now, and it's great for the audience and my fans, but it takes its toll for me now after so many years of playing this character that it's, because I take him home with me. I've learned to not as much take him home, but he's tortured, he's tormented, he's bipolar, he's had breakdowns just like I had. It's tough.
Yeah.
But it's good because it's opened the eyes of the audience as far as mental illness and as far as, bipolar, especially because I talk so much about it. You know what I mean?
And it's really transformed you into one of our best mental health advocates out there. So thank you for your advocacy work. I do want to go back to ask you about kind of early in your lived experience. Would you mind describing for us some of those first experiences when you were feeling symptoms of having bipolar? When did that happen for you? What was it like for you and for those around you at that time?
I'm going to get all emotional now. Early as a kid, nobody, the only thing we knew as a kid, when I was a kid, about nervous breakdowns, it was just like that person over there is having a nervous breakdown. It wasn't bipolar. It wasn't manic episode. It was, she's crazy. That's what it was when we were young. So growing up, I had a lot of problems as a boy, sleeping. I was scared at night to sleep. I was very sensitive, but nothing out of the ordinary. I was abused, and that was tough. But as I got older, as a teenager, I always tell the story that I was like the tough guy, the toughest in the school type of guy. And I was very popular. And we used to go and get in fights. And there would be a lot of times we'd get in there and I was ready to go. And then the other times I was scared to death. And I'd have to make excuses to not fight. And my buddies would be like, what do you mean we're not going to? No, we can't today. But that I think was the beginning manifesting itself. But I didn't know what it was. And then at 21, I got into acting. And when I got into acting, it was almost like the energy inside me took me over. And that was my first manic episode. and I was doing a lot of things that were out of the ordinary. I felt like God was talking to me. And eventually they put me in a mental institution for 2.5 weeks where I was strapped down to a bed. And that's it. That was the beginning.
And you write about those experiences in your book in great detail and great honesty, I found as I was reading. I'm just wondering, when you were formally diagnosed with bipolar, how did that affect the way you viewed your own mental health and well-being? Was it a relief to have a diagnosis? Did it make it scarier? Could you talk a little bit about that time?
Yeah, being in the mental institution, they would never tell me what I had, what was going on. And I'd be with the psychiatrist. I said, well, what is it? What do I have? They wouldn't tell me. So when I escaped from the hospital and went home, I was introduced to a psychiatrist named Dr. Noonan, Dr. Charles Noonan, I'll never forget him. And he didn't say a lot. He just looked at me. He wrote things down. And he looked up and he said, "You're manic depressive." And I said, okay, that's great. He said, "We're going to put you on lithium and you're going to be all right. It's going to take a while, but you're going to be all right." And he was right. So he put it, and I felt great because I had I knew what was going on at least. But even, at that time, that was over 30 years ago, I didn't know what manic depression was. But it's funny, Jimi Hendrix wrote about a song on manic depression. So obviously, they knew, somebody knew, but way back. But I didn't know, and then that was it. And then what happened was he put me on lithium, and I think at the end of the year, about 9 months later, I felt great, and I got off my medication and had another manic episode. So there we go.
Do you mind expanding upon that a little more? It's not like you start taking a form of treatment, in your case, lithium, and the next day you feel better. What was that journey back to recovery like for you?
I got on lithium, but I was on all kinds of stuff. Okay. And you got to understand something. Being in a hospital is bad, but being out of the hospital when the medication wears off, you start now knowing that this is what's happening. And it was much harder when I was at home without medication or wearing off. Lithium I had to take all the time, but the other stuff started wearing off. So then I had to spend 8 months of major depression. I'm talking thoughts of suicide. I would yell at God, "Why are you doing this to me?" Because that pain is unbearable, man. And don't get me wrong, I just felt that pain last year. So it's not a pain that anybody understands unless you've been in it or you're mentally ill. That depression where you roll out of bed and the only time you feel good is when you're dreaming, because when you're dreaming of happy things. And then you got to wake up and go back to reality. So that was about 8 months. And then in the book I entered a contest called The Most Watchable Man in America. And I never forget, it's like, I win this thing. And then I felt good again, a little bit, slowly. And then I just didn't take my medication. So the lesson is, you shouldn't go off your medication, especially lithium, because for bipolar, it's very important.
When someone is living with a mood disorder like you, we know obviously you are the most impacted individual, but we also know that it impacts the people around you. What was the support like for you during that time, and what was the experience like for your family and friends?
Well, at that time, it was my mom and dad, and it was very difficult for them because they had to go back to work. They took off work when I got out of the hospital. They took off work for I don't remember, weeks or whatever, month. And then they had to go back to work. So I was alone from 6 a.m. till 4 o'clock. And, they hated it and I hated it because there's nothing worse than being alone when you're in this state of mind, no pun intended. Yeah. It's very difficult, but they were so supportive. When they would come home, my mom would rub my feet. My mom and dad were incredible, and I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm not trying to make this if I didn't have my mom and dad then, and if I didn't have my family now, we wouldn't be talking. It's too hard, too difficult.
That does lead me to wonder, when did you decide that you wanted to start to be talking to organizations like DBSA or through DBSA and others to share your experience, to be out about your mood disorder?
Well, what happened was I had somebody who told me that if I talked about being bipolar, I wouldn't get hired as an actor. And so I didn't talk about it publicly. And then one day I did an article in a magazine, just something small, that I had, bipolar, this and that. And a boy wrote me, and he said that because of that article, that it helped him get through his brother who committed suicide, and he was bipolar. And I said, I gotta talk about this. So then I said, I'm talking about it. I haven't shut up since, but then I got on Oprah, and then I was everywhere, but I got to be honest, only until now. And I got organizations like you and all these other organizations that have embraced me, but only until the pandemic have I seen a major difference, because I think people now understand. A lot of people during the pandemic have never gone through an anxiety. So then they're like, oh, this is what this is. Because you have to understand, with me and anxiety, people are, in the past, it's like, yeah, it's all right. Because it's invisible. You can't see it. So now I think this pandemic, obviously, a lot more suicides, but I think it's brought the awareness a lot more.
When you started on General Hospital, and your character was diagnosed with bipolar, why was that so important for you? And can you talk a little bit about how the cast members and the public responded?
It was important to me, for two reasons. The main reason, and it's always the main reason, is to help people. I knew what I went through, and if I could help somebody not go through that kind of pain, maybe just one person or another, that was important to me. And the other thing was that I knew that I'd have great acting scenes. and the actors and stuff, they've been incredible. They support me 100% with all this. And I had I think you mentioned it, a son who not my real son, but my son on the show who who got bipolar, and I helped him through it. He ended up winning an Emmy and 2 Emmys. So it's great.
Did you notice a response from the public, from your viewers, to you talking about bipolar on the show?
Yeah, look, the audience has been there. I have a real amazing connection with the audience, and they, from the beginning of speaking of bipolar, and have been just unreal. I mean, the response I get that I read is overwhelmingly amazing, but sometimes it's hard because I'm not a doctor. So I got to say, look, I'm not a doctor. I'm a professional. I just tell them my story, and that's what I do. But I don't have to tell you, so many people have mental illness. It's unbelievable.
One of the important roles that I think you're playing is you're making this topic talkable, making it okay to talk about how someone's feeling, whether it's a mood disorder or some other mental health condition. So again, hats off to you for that. I'm wondering if you could say a little more about State of Mind, your YouTube series. You've got a lot of things going on, but you've made it a priority to interview others on their mental health conditions and talk about your own. So what was the impetus for launching State of Mind?
That's a good question, man, because I love State of Mind. State of Mind started one night. I woke up and had anxiety, and I filmed it because I wanted the audience to see what it's about. And this is no lie, the TV was on. That's what woke me up. And it's Steve Harvey on TV. And he's literally saying, as I'm filming, I can't believe this Instagram stuff. Everybody's filming themselves. And so I filmed some of that and I put it on my Instagram story. And then my friend Melissa, who's my assistant and my editor, I told her about it. She goes, you should film something today. It's Mental Health Month. And this was like 2 years ago. And you should film something and talk about, I said, Melissa, who's going to want to listen to me talking about? She goes, just do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, okay. So I did it. That was a Sunday. And she goes, put it out right now. I said, it's Sunday. Nobody puts out anything on Sunday. She goes, just do it. I did it. And then the response was really good. And then I just decided to do it every Sunday like church. And I'd go in my car and I'd put music on and I do this thing for like 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And I talk about my mental health, but I was talking about everything that was going on in my life. Like my book was coming out. I promoted that and mental health, and I tell stories, and it started growing. But then Instagram took away my music, and I said, "Oh man!" And I said, "Melissa, I don't know if I want to without music. I don't know." She goes, "Just talk. People want to hear you talk." So I kept doing it, and then Instagram, I can only talk half the time I could talk on each bar. So I had to talk faster and make it work. And I did it and it worked. But then everybody said, I'm the kind of guy that when you tell me to do something, I say no. I don't want to do this. And then I do it. And then I figure it out and I get good at it. So everybody said, go to YouTube. Then I did it. Boy, it was rough in the beginning, State of Mind. And then I figured it out. We started with the help of my family because they were on me all the time. It's not good. It's not good. And I made it to what it is now. And now it is, I got, today I'm interviewing AJ Mendez. She's WWE big and mental health advocate. And there's something else happening. You'll hear about it at some point. It's
Okay.
going to be, it's really big. So I'm so proud of it that I get choked up because it was kind of like my baby.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew once I got it going that there was something there. And because with me, I listen to the audience. They tell me. And I know some people say, I don't care. They tell me what's working. They tell me what's not working. And they told me early on that this is going to work. So there we go. That's state of mind.
I caught one of your State of Mind interviews recently. You were interviewing actress Lindsay Godfrey. You talked about when you were manic that you saw God and the devil everywhere fighting each other. And then when I was reading your book, you made similar references to God and the devil. I'm actually curious what role spirituality plays in your recovery from your mental health condition, if at all today.
I 100% believe in God. I was born Catholic. And then with my nervous breakdown, some of it had to do with God. And then the second nervous breakdown I had all the way had to do with God. I mean, I tell the story in my book where I was having a nervous breakdown bad. And I said, I got to go to a church. I got to go to a church to my wife and my mom. So we went to this church, and I know, and it's where I went to school, but it was closed. So we're walking out, and I hear somebody go, "Hello." And it was Monsignor, who I don't know, but I've seen. Can I help you? I said, yeah, Monsignor, I need to get inside a church, man. I need to pray. And he said, well, it's closed. I said, and they always look at you like, is this drugs or is this crazy, right? And he says, he looks at me, he goes, do you take walks? I said, no, I don't take walks. He goes, you should take walks. I said, no, I got to get in there or else something may happen. He goes, okay, look, I'm going to open up the church and you're going to go in, but don't go to the altar because the alarm's off. So I was in the third pew with my mom. We're both crying our eyes out, praying. And something got me inside and I walked up to the altar and the alarm didn't go off. Then my mom walked up to the altar, didn't go off. So I don't know who said what. I think it was my mom or my wife said to Monsignor, why didn't the alarm go off? And he said, well, I think they forgot to turn it on. Now you can think what you want. Of course, I thought, and I still think it was God. Somebody else was thinking it was just a coincidence or whatever it was. But God has been a big part. I mean, because I tell people this last time during the pandemic when I was probably as close as I've ever been to not wanting to be here. And I was praying, but he wasn't answering my prayers. And I was thinking, and it was 4 months of hell, of real hell. You could ask my wife. She was like, I don't know how much more I could take. And my son helped me out. I won't even go into that story because I'll just start crying like a baby. But guess what? The prayers were answered. And I've had one of the best years of my life. So, I mean, right when I thought he's going to let me down. He doesn't. Look, it's hard enough to do this, especially mental, anything, addiction. It's hard enough to do it on your own. You need help. And I'm not saying it has to be God. Whatever it is that you need to not have to do it alone, because it's too difficult.
Well, you've referenced a few times now, kind of your experience through the pandemic. And, I've heard from lots of people who took different steps to kind of help them manage through the pandemic, manage their mental health. Were there some other things that were helpful to you, whether it was physical activity or new projects, things like that?
Well, look, I have to be 100% honest. And during the pandemic, during the 4 months of torture that I went through, I did everything. I worked out, which usually helps a lot. Meditating usually helps a lot. Eating better, everything. But when you let yourself go like I did, when I have a thing where I say it's gears, like you should always be in first, second gear. Try not to go to third, but third's all right. You go to fourth and fifth, you're in big trouble. I was in fifth. And if there's a sixth, that's where I was. I think sixth, you're not here anymore. You messed up. So for me, I let myself go so much, nothing was helping. And I was trying to get help through talking to, and there was a Zoom time, and I would, talk to my therapist or whoever I need, that nothing was helping. And then I decided to go, or finally got to go, because you couldn't get an appointment, to a psychiatrist. And he was a little, but I connected with him because he had gone through the same thing I've been through. So we connected, and he put me on Lexapro. And I had read that on Lexapro, when you first start taking it, it is horrible. And they're right. And that was scary, because first 5 days that I took it, I'm like, oh no, if this doesn't work, then what? Right? But it worked. After 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, it started helping. And I was able to go to work, man, and finish the storyline on Alzheimer's. And I did it. I wasn't 100%, but I was good enough to go to work. If General Hospital had called me a month before, there's no way I could have gone. So I finished the story, won another Emmy, which is amazing. But I will say Lithium, because on the cover of my book, Lithium and now Lexapro saved my life. And I know people have problems with medication and this and that. Look, I can only tell you the truth, and that's my truth. And Lexapro did it. So, and then after that, you have to do everything that we just talked about: working out, meditating, which I do on a regular basis.
One of our core beliefs is that each individual should find her or his own path to wellness, and it sounds like you have continuing to work on your path to wellness, which is great. And we are doing this interview in the month of September, which is Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. You've mentioned today a few times about struggling with suicidal thoughts. You talk about it in your book as well. What does bring you back when you're at that low point?
Okay, I'm going to tell you what brought me back. This is a great interview, man. You're asking great questions, and you're a great listener. I wish we were in person, man.
I look forward to that sometime.
Yeah. Maybe you can do State of Mind.
I'd be happy to. We should talk about that.
We'll talk about that. What got me through, I'm going to tell you exactly what got me through. Okay. And I've never gotten in depth like this. Every day in my house, you know, I got my whole family. It was great. It was great. But every morning when I was feeling this horribleness, I'd have to be alone. Even if they're there, I was alone from like, because they get up late. I was alone from like 6 a.m. till 11 o'clock or so, probably. So every morning was just horrendous. I had a friend who would call me. I think he knew. He was in Vietnam. And I think he knew where I was. So we would talk, but, you know, and I started getting thoughts, right? Like that tree. How do I do it? How do I put a rope? How do I do that? My wife has a gun. If I took the gun, I started having these thoughts. And that was every morning, man. It never got better. It's that deep, that horrible. And one day, it was the worst. And I'll tell you exactly what was going on at that point. I thought of my family. I prayed to God, and I thought of my family, and I thought of, I'm not joking, state of mind. How, if I did it, what message would that be to all the people who follow me on, you know, state of mind or through mental health? It would send a horrible message to them that maybe it's all right to, or maybe I didn't have the strength or whatever it was. So that got me through for at least another couple of weeks, I think. I've never said that. I don't think I've ever said that.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm glad that it pulled you through.
Yeah. So am I.
Yeah. I am curious, as a Nicaraguan American, are there cultural barriers that have made it difficult for you on this journey? Either cultural barriers that made it hard to get help or to talk about your experience?
Yeah, well, you know, being Hispanic, it's a very macho upbringing, tough. You don't cry. And I guess that's all right for some people. But for me, it wasn't, because I was incredibly sensitive. And I find that now, especially with, you know, being Hispanic, and you can't, the worst thing you can do with mental illness, even just in life, is holding things in. You got to find a way to get it out. And if I held it in, I say that I held crying in so much that when I got into the mental institution, I was like a baby, man, just there crying. You know. So now I don't really stop myself from crying. I let it cry, and it's important not to, I just think it's one thing I've come to the conclusion that I think even to this day, I've held things in too much. So, but that was the way I was brought up.
Well, I appreciate that you've been so open with us during this conversation. You know, the theme of our summit is Our Story Continues, really to reflect that this isn't a one and done. This is an ongoing experience of recovery and wellness for each individual. You know, your story's continued. You've grown and you've flourished in so many ways. And I know you're going to continue to do some work with us going forward, which we appreciate. We've already talked about a possible podcast around the holiday season coming up here. So I'll look forward to that. But what else is next for you? What are you planning to continue to talk about your story and help promote advocacy around mental health?
Well, for me, the beauty is that I have state of mind, which, it's growing, and we'll talk more about what the next thing that could happen, but it's growing with guests, and I want to broaden it out. I want to get it to where it's not just soap opera. And now I'm starting to do that. I want music, I want sports people, and I want to broaden it out that way. And I just want to reach as many people as I can. That's my goal. Because this, to me, I'm in the room right now that is my platform. I can say anything I want. It's the best. If I get angry at somebody, I can come in here and go, that guy. So this is where I can take this to. I think the sky's the limit. So it's fantastic. And I didn't know that I could interview. I mean, in the beginning it was a little, but I'm not look. My problem is, I wish I had more knowledge in a lot of areas, but what I'm good at is just opening up people and making them feel comfortable. And then we have a conversation. I don't want a conversation where I want it to be so like you're just looking at through a peephole, and listening to these two people talk. That's what I want. And that's what I'm getting.
Well, Maurice, I have enjoyed thoroughly this conversation. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for all you're doing for everyone who is living with a mood disorder or another mental health condition, and for speaking out and being such a great advocate. And thank you for being a part of this year's DBSA Leadership Summit.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great, one of my favorite interviews, and I've done a lot of interviews. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
We're not done yet. Maurice Benard is on standby, and he is ready to take your questions. So we're going to take a 5-minute stretch break and then return live so that he could answer any questions you have for him. Please drop your questions in the Q&A box. We'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Well, we have many people on the line who just heard our interview, the one that you and I did together on Saturday. And I've got more than a dozen questions that they have for you. But before we get into the questions, we do have a surprise for you. Many of the folks watching right now don't realize just how far back in our history DBSA and you go together. We found this throwback video from 2006. So we're going to play for you and everyone else right now.
Moodiness, anger, or aggressive behavior, and increased physical and mental activity. These are all symptoms of bipolar disorder, a real illness that affects millions of people. It can be treated. If you want help, go online or call this number.
Damn. That's a long time ago, man.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, I could have done much better today because I was always so nervous about stuff like that. But I looked young.
You look great. You look great. Yeah. Maurice, we have a number of questions from our audience. Of course, as a reminder, this week is the DBSA Leadership Summit. We've been holding wellness and education and advocacy sessions all week, a few hours a day since it's online. We're on day 3, and we've got over 70 people watching online this conversation right now. So that's who you're speaking to. The first question that we have, you in the interview talked about saying, I'm bipolar. versus I have bipolar. I'm just wondering, or this individual is wondering, what does that difference mean to you? Saying you have bipolar versus identifying as someone who is bipolar.
You know, with me, it's just like, it's what I've been saying my whole life. And I don't know whether it's the right way or not. It's like people say to me, don't say you're mentally ill, say you have mental health. It's a habit. It's just what I've been saying since I had my first nervous breakdown, that I have mental illness, or I am mentally ill, whatever. So to me, it's just that's what I've said, and that's what else. Unless somebody says to me, "Hey, that's not good. You got to stop that."
Yeah, yeah,
But-
I think the spirit of the question is, people, yourself and others, we are made up of more than just one element of our characteristics. So we are more than just our mental health condition. I think that's the spirit of the question there. Our next question is about you're taking lithium. And the questioner asks, how long were you on lithium? Have you had any long-term effects? This individual who's asking was on lithium for 15 years and was diagnosed at the age of 40.
Yeah, I started taking lithium right after I escaped from the mental institution when I was 22 years old. And then 8 months later, after a lot of turmoil, I stopped taking my medication because I thought I was good. And then I wasn't good. I had my second breakdown. And so I started taking it again. Then when I got General Hospital 2 years before that, I had stopped again. That's why you never stop, okay? You never stop taking your medication for lithium, for manic depression or bipolar. It was called manic depression back then. So then I had another breakdown when I started General Hospital that I'm going to be talking about on State of Mind. And remind me, because I'll forget what the question was, but I did this thing I'm doing this thing on State of Mind on the beginning of my character on General Hospital and my third nervous breakdown, because I wanted, you guys have not only read my book and heard my audio, now you get to see it through other people's eyes that were there. And I get to hear it from somebody who was there. So then after that breakdown, that was 30 years ago, I am so happy to say that I have not had another breakdown in 30 years.
That's wonderful.
And I've never gone off taking lithium for
And
30
any
years.
long-term side effects from the medication?
No, well, no, nothing, but they say, my kidney and whatnot. So I go get blood tests, and I've lowered the dosage a little bit just because the kidneys seemed a little bit, they needed help, but that's it. Other than that, I've been fantastic.
Really happy to hear that you've been doing so well. Our next question is, do you have any advice for people who are newly diagnosed with bipolar?
Embrace it. Be proud of it.
Mm.
It makes us stronger. It makes us who we are. It makes us not boring. And that's how you have to see it. You can't see it as weak, as there's something wrong with you, because there isn't. I've been proud of it from the beginning. The reality is when I'm going through things, I questioned it, but we all can get through it.
That's fantastic. Embrace it. Our next question is from someone who wants to know, in terms of individuals that you've had on State of Mind, is there anyone you'd like to have that you haven't had yet?
Yeah, State of Mind is I told my assistant, Melissa, I said, build it and they will come. Now, that's not my phrase. That's Field of Dreams.
Sure. You can steal it.
Yeah. And it seems to be happening. I have Cheryl Underwood from The Talk next Saturday. I have AJ Mendez, I've already said.
Yeah.
And I got some things planned. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a kid that I'm going to be interviewing who's in prison, in a Thailand prison for 6 years. And I can't even talk about it right now without feeling something. So that's going to be an intense interview. So, look, I put this out there and I'm like a kid in the candy store waiting to see who wants to do it. And that's where I'm at.
Our next question ties back to the interview we did on Saturday. And you've written about this in your book and spoke about it on State of Mind. You've mentioned having episodes where you're fighting. There's a fighting between God and the devil. And this individual is asking, after hearing your incredible experience at the church when you walked up to the altar, how has your relationship with your faith evolved alongside your mental health journey?
Look, as you know me, Michael, I'm very honest. And a lot of things, I believe wholeheartedly in God, but I believe in God because I feel God in me. I just do. And I always have, but I don't go to church like I should. I do watch something on TV every Sunday. But that's not enough. But I don't go to church every Sunday, and I don't read the Bible. I rarely read the Bible. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm this practicing Christian. I don't know. I was, after a few of my breakdowns, I always become born again Christian, but then I don't continue it. So I don't know what to call myself. And that's the honest truth.
One of the things I really have come to appreciate and respect about you is your openness and your honesty about just where you're at. At this stage of your wellness in your life. Thank you. Our next question for you is, what do you say that we as peers can do to make a difference in our community surrounding mental health to continue to perpetuate change for the good concerning mental health?
Something I just told an actor, I don't know if it's an act, maybe it was an actor or somebody else, about our interview. And this is what brings change. Obviously, awareness, but talking, for instance, so I was talking to someone just now, that's what it was, my stage manager, Craig. And I said, being mentally ill, he goes, don't say that. I said, Craig, you're the problem. You don't, but I didn't say it mean, I said, that's the problem, Craig. You're like my brother. You can't, we have to be able to talk and say mental illness or this or that, like easy. Otherwise we hold it in and we're afraid to say it. And that is not good for our mental health. For instance, when I talk to you now lately, I didn't talk about suicide before. Yes, I mentioned it in my book, but I didn't go into it like I would now if I did another book. And you know what? This is what brings change. Now, I talk about suicide like it's anything else. It's so easy now for me to talk about it. And I think that's good. So these people who hold things in, they can't say suicide because they feel, they're ashamed. It's not good. You got to be able to, the more we talk about these things, what we're doing right now, that's what brings change.
And I mentioned you in our interview, and I'll mention again, this is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And that is the theme for our campaign this month. And that is speaking up about suicide and the need for prevention and good resources out there for people feeling suicidal.
And you know what? When you said that to me when we were interviewing me, I had forgotten that it was Suicide Prevention Month, and I was talking a lot about suicide. I wasn't doing it because you know what? It's Suicide Prevention Month. Let me talk about suicide. No, I just now I talk about it all the time because that's what happened to me a year ago, and it's close to me. And why? Shit. Why I can talk about it is because I got through it, and I feel good about getting through it. And I know now that if it ever happened again, I'll get through it.
Well, we appreciate you speaking up. Thank you. As you know, DBSA was founded on peer support and offering support groups where people with mood disorders can come together. So our next question is, do you get peer support? Have you ever gotten peer support? By the way, this person also wants to know that they really appreciated you saying in the interview that you state your truth.
Yeah. You know, truth to me is everything. It's my dad taught me. I mean, he was tough on it, but I couldn't lie to him because I'd get in big trouble. So the truth has always been a big deal. But I've never been able to really speak the truth like I'm speaking now. I mean, I did it, 80, 90%, but now I'm trying to do it 100%. Because before I think it would hurt me too much to speak the truth and get the reaction or whatever it was. Now the truth saves me, helps me. And as far as peer pressure, what did you say? Help from
Peer
peers.
support.
Peer support. Well, I get help from everybody. I really do, from my friends, my mom and dad. My Paula's been like, anybody who knows, it's like an angel from above. I put Paula, I was talking to somebody else today. I put Paula through so much during the pandemic with my problems, my issues, that she didn't roll her eyes when I would come in the room, but it was it was like I could feel this, oh, please have good news. But yeah, so anyway.
Well, our next question is about Paula and your family, and that is, how do you let Paula know, let your children know when you need help, and do they know how to help you when your mental health is not at its best?
Well, I tell the story, I'll tell it again, because just in case somebody didn't hear it. During the pandemic, I was in bad shape, and I was in the car with my son, and I was crying. I was doing everything to get through. I would do sprints, they had taken to the dentist, and I was waiting outside doing sprints and trying to get this out of me, man. Nothing would help. So I'm in the car with my son, and I'm crying, and I said, buddy, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I don't think I can go on. And I really didn't think I could. And he said, what, Dad? I said, buddy, I don't think I can go. And he's never seen me cry like that. And he said, I'll get you through it, Dad, or I'll help you, Dad. And so that helped for a little bit.
Sounds like quite a moment.
It's a huge moment.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Our next question, Maurice, is from someone who's wondering how he can get up in the morning, how you get up in the morning and your ability to go to work on days when you're feeling so badly. This person says that she can barely get out of bed sometimes.
The thing is, after my first breakdown, I escaped from the hospital, came home. Once the medication wore off, I was in major depression for 8 months. Literally rolling out of bed, falling down off the bed on the floor. But you know what? That's one step forward. You got to get out of that bed. I don't care how you feel. You got to roll out of that bed. You got to get to the next step, which is whatever it is, go have some breakfast. You know, I was just that way during the pandemic. I didn't want it, but I'd get up, man. Sometimes I'd jump out of bed I'd be like, boom. Because I knew that if I stayed in bed, the thoughts and the ugliness would not stop and get worse. So I jump out of bed, go make some breakfast, go work out. It was all difficult, but I knew I had to. But that's from my experience of going through so much. So that's the beauty of getting through one hard time. And then you said, okay, like Paula says, and you know, it's the truth. She said to me when I told her that I couldn't go on or whatever, she'd say, 100 times you have told me that, and 100 times you've gone on. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
So now you do it 101.
Yeah, or 110. I mean, you just, you know, I would hope now that I'm not afraid of it ever happening again, because I know that I'll just get through it. It all passes. It's just, you have to have the mentality. And trust me, people, don't think that I'm this tough guy because you see me on TV playing a mafia guy who's strong. I'm fragile as hell. I'm fragile. I can't, you don't have no idea how fragile I am. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, that's a nice segue into I think the next question. That is, how do you deal with the macho culture and the pressure for men to be quiet about their mental health and their mental health concerns? And did you have to learn to unlearn stigma?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, I could come from a Hispanic background. I speak fluent Spanish. Todo está bien chévere. That's just a song. And I was born to be macho, to not cry, to this, that. And you got to break that chain. And the more I speak, and I think that's why I think it's good for me to speak, because I look so tough and everything. And so, and I tell you what, I'll cry, man. I cried on a dime. You saw me last, I don't know, you were there, but I mean, I think I was crying all over the place. And I don't care, because I know that it's good for people to see that. And it's good for people not to hold it in. It's good for me not to hold it in. It's good for people not to hold it in. And I'll break that stigma if that's the last thing I could do.
Now you're talking to us from the set, General Hospital, in your office there. How are the producers with you? Are they ever stigmatizing? This is the question. Do you ever have to educate them and say, stop, that's not the way it is?
Look, General Hospital, from the beginning I came here and had a nervous breakdown and quit the show in 3 weeks. Every producer with my mental health has been absolutely phenomenal. Like my mother, my wife, my father, that's how they've been. Each one, I've had 3. Wendy Rich, Shelley Curtis, Jill Phelps, Bob Guza, Frank, Valentine, who's my producer right now. They are a godsend. Because I don't care what, if I'm having a problem, they'll do anything to help me. And it's really, I so appreciate it, because this is a hard job. And you know, I play a character who's bipolar. So it's a very, very close to home. But the support is unreal.
That's fantastic. Our next question, and I'll just read it to you. I have heard differing views regarding having and raising children when you have a mental illness. Having children of your own, how would you speak to this? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I made a mistake not wanting my kids to see me in anxiety or well, basically anxiety, because they were too young for the manic episodes that I've had, or depression. I try to hide it from them, or whatever I try to do. I think that's a mistake. And then during the pandemic, I couldn't hide it. You can't run when you're stuck inside a house. So I'd have to go to dinner and they're all there, and there I am, obviously messed up. Can't hide that when you're in front of somebody. It's like, yeah. And I wish it could have been an open discussion. I mean, I'd have discussions with them kind of by themselves, but I think it should have been an open discussion. Next, if that ever happened again, it should be everybody at the table. And I'm like, look, I'm messed up and I'm going through some hard stuff. And I think it should have been that. So be honest.
Make it talkable.
Yes.
Yeah. How has playing Sonny informed your recovery?
Well, when I came back from the pandemic, when I was in bad shape, I had to do an Alzheimer's story. And I think it actually helped me get through a lot of my anxiety, or at the end of it, that and Lexapro. But I think because it seemed, it's funny, even though I was not 100% there, when I was acting, it seemed so easy. And that was good for me. To go through something like that and then go to work and know that you can still do it is enlightening. You're like, dang, I can still act, man. That's cool. Right?
Confidence building.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Our next question actually has to do with all those photos on the wall behind you. Can you tell us a little bit about those photos?
Yeah, these are all the people from the show. I'm not on there. I'm gonna have to talk to someone. But it's just, this is history, man. This is history. Look. Of course, I'll show you one that I'm in.
Of course.
There I am there. And then this is 25 years anniversary. I mean, it's just pictures all over here,
That's awesome.
This is a GH con, and then there's Emmys over here. They're silver now because they're so old.
We'll say long lasting.
Yeah. So that's cool. My 3 are at home.
Yeah, where they should be.
Yeah, they're good. All the mental health awards. I'm very proud of those, man. I love those mental health awards.
Yeah. Maurice, we have a few more questions for you, if I may. Our next question is, how does living with bipolar impact you as an actor?
Oh, it's the whole deal, man. It's like there's no way I'd be the actor I am without having bipolar, because I draw from everything I've been through. So all the pain, all the turmoil, all the darkness, it all helps me act, man. And like I said, I've always, but not just lately, I've always been proud of being bipolar. I've never felt any kind of shame or that it's negative. I always felt it was positive. It's like, hi, I'm Maurice. How you doing? I'm bipolar. Everywhere I went, hi, I'm bipolar. I just felt good about it, man. And now it more so because of what I'm doing with it, right? So it's like, it's amazing, you know, it's like, it's like I knew this was going to happen from the beginning. It's funny, you know, my first manic episode, the difference is at that time when you're going through a manic episode, you feel like you know what's going to happen and you know what you have inside of you. But the problem is when you're having a manic episode, it takes you over. You can't stop that feeling. But what I knew 30 years ago, 35 years ago, was almost like what's happening now with State of Mind, with the book. I mean, I was a guy in a mental institution in a bed strapped down with a straitjacket, basically. How could I know that there was a reason? How would I know that 35 years?
Well, that is a segue to our next question for you. You've made references to escaping from that mental hospital. To the degree you're comfortable, can you share more about what happened at that time?
Yeah. The whole time in the mental institution, I wanted to escape. I wanted to get out, but they wouldn't let me out. So one time I had this guy, poor guy. He was messed up. He had a broken lip and he's kind of, and I said, hey, call my mom and act like you're the doctor so you can let me out. They let me out of the hospital. So I dialed my mom. I said, Mom, they're letting me out of the hospital. She kind of, you know, was like, hijo. That means son in Spanish. Hijo. I said, no, I'm serious. The doctor's right here. You want to talk to him? And then she goes, yeah, let me talk to him. So he gets on the phone. Hello? Hi. And then she said, what's your name? And he goes, what's my name? And I'm like, Dr. Hepps. So he blew the whole thing. She knew. So all I wanted to do was get out because I hated being this freaking place where it was scary and things. So the one day that they let me out for a walk, I gave this other guy my leather jacket and he gave me his tennis shoes because I knew I couldn't run with hard shoes. So I had tennis shoes that were too big for me, right? And so it was a nurse and then a guy with her, and they're walking me out. And they're talking and flirting. They walk through one door, walk through another door, and they walk outside. So as they were laughing and stuff, I'm just walking casually, just looking. Woo! I start running. So I ran for miles. I weighed 129 pounds, if you can imagine. I weigh 160 right now. Called my buddy and my buddies, and they picked me up. And then I went home. My mom's like, "Why do you go? What do you do? You're escaping the." And then they called the doctor, and the doctor said, if you can handle him at home, he can stay home. So I stayed home. That was it.
Maurice, we have a couple last questions, more about present day than the past. One of our viewers just wants to know how you're doing today.
Well, today I'm doing incredible. You know, staying on my medication. Good things going on with State of Mind, and it's like therapy for me. And I hope it's like therapy for whoever goes in there. Taking care of myself. I got a bad knee, I got a bad shoulder, but aside from that, I just feel good. And General Hospital's flying right now through the roof. Thank goodness. And that's that.
Well, speaking of General Hospital, our last question is, one of our viewers is curious, what's on the schedule for the rest of today in terms of shooting more scenes?
I got 2 scenes left. Right before this interview, I felt real hard asleep. I was in a daze and I came up here and it's like, oh, how am I going to talk? So I got 2 scenes left, and then I go home and do nothing. And then tomorrow I'm doing another job. I can't really talk about, but yeah. And then Saturday I got 2 interviews for State of Mind, and yeah, I'm busy right now. I'm just busy.
Yeah. It sounds like you're enjoying what you're doing.
I am. Yeah, there's nothing I'm not liking right now.
Well, I can't thank you enough for making time to speak to the DBSA crowd, to be part of this year's Leadership Summit. It really has been a joy talking with you on Saturday and again today. Thank you for making time for all of us, given how busy you are. And most importantly, you've just been a great mental health advocate for our community. And I look forward to finding ways that we can continue to keep talking and keep working together and help reduce stigma and making mental health talkable.
Yeah, and it's an honor to do this with you. You're a great interviewer, and let's work together, because I just believe it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, just grow everything that involving mental health. And I'm not going to stop. May even do another book. Maybe, we'll see.
That would be great. That'd be
Yeah.
great. Let me just close for all of you. Thank you again, Maurice, Benard, and to all of you for attending. Our thanks to those of you who have offered some questions and encouraging comments to Maurice. Really appreciate the level of engagement. Tomorrow, our Leadership Summit continues, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. For now, thank you, Maurice, and to you and to everyone else. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye for
Bye,
now.
everybody. All right. See you later.